So within the OS module, you have the path functions. So basically, what these allow you to do is it allows you to interact with the file paths. Now I know that doesn't sound exciting, like whoa, file paths. But believe me, when you start writing code, file paths really matter. And one of the big issues that you run into, again, when you're writing Python code, is you might not necessarily know what system your Python code is going to get deployed to. Will it get deployed to Mac, Linux, we'll go to Windows, something like that. And the issue is file paths look different on different operating systems, whether they use forward slashes or whether they use backslashes, that type of deal. Well, if you hard code forward slashes or backslashes into your code, and then you try to run your script on the other operating system, your entire script is going to fail out because it doesn't know what to do with that particular slash that you're giving it. So basically, by using the path functions, you can do things like find where your current file is at. You can create file paths to where you want to go to. You can do a lot of interesting things. So in this example, we're going to find what directory this script is located in, and then we're going to change the working directory to be that directory. So one of the issues that you run into with Python, right, is basically whenever it's going to save a file or whenever it's going to read from a file, by default, it's going to look at your working directory. So if you're just using the terminal and nothing else, most of the time that will default to your user account root directory, so under like the Eli folder or something like that. If you're using VS Code and you open workspaces, it'll default to wherever you've opened that workspace up to. So one of the problems you have is, again, sometimes with your code, basically you have your script and you want everything to be like right around the script. You don't want it all over your system. So basically with this, you're able to change your working directory for while this script runs. So we take a look at this. We're going to import the OS module, and then we're going to do print os.getCwd function. So this is get the current working directory. It's going to tell us what our current working directory is. Then we're going to get the path, right? So basically, this little long line of code here is going to get us the path to our file. So os.path.dir name. So basically this is going to get the directory name for where our file is located. One of the issues though, so you could theoretically just do __ file here, that's it, if you're confident about your code. But again, computers can be weird. So basically you have this function here, os.path.absolute_path. ABS is absolute path to __ file, right? So basically this is a system variable for the name of this file, so it's called example.py. So basically it's giving us the absolute path to this file so that nothing quirky goes on, because sometimes you can have quirky things go on. So path, the directory name of the absolute path for this file. Then we're going to do os.change directory to that new path. So this is changing the working directory to this path that we found. Then we're going to then print os.get current working directory. So once we've changed the directory, we're going to print that out, and then we are going to print the path, and these two things should now be equal. When we then go to run this particular script, again, since we're just running this, I don't have workspace open. The current working directory was users Eli. This script is located on my desktop. So basically, it prints out the path. Users Eli desktop is the current path, and this is now the current working directory. Users Eli desktop is now the current working directory. So that's how I can find what the current working directory is. I can find what directory my file is in, and then if I want to change the current working directory to where my file is, this is how you do it. So here what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a file path to a new file name using the join function. So basically what the join function does is you give it a file path, and then you give it a file name, and then what will happen, we'll glue those two things together with the appropriate slashes so everything works okay. We import OS, we have a file name, so file equals test.txt. We're going to get the current path to this script. We're just going to use that. So os.path dir name, os.path.absolute.path for the file, and that is going to be the path. And then we're going to say file_path equals os.path join. So we're going to join this path, comma, with this file, and then that is going to give us a file path, and then we are going to print that out. So now when we print that out, we can see that we get users Eli desktop test.txt. So that is the file path that we would need if we're going to be creating a file for test.txt. I know it doesn't look exciting. You're like, ooh, Eli, create a file path. But I'm telling you, these slashes matter. So beyond that, we have some other examples here of different functions that might be useful for you. There's the base name function. So file name equals os.path.basename, and we're going for the absolute path of our file, right? And then we're going to print that out, and so that will print out example.py. So if we're trying to figure out what is the name of the file that we're currently using, or what is the name of a file within a file path, that is a way we can get that. Then we have the split text function. So basically, if you want to get the file path, and then you want to have a tuple where in the first index is the file path and the second index is the extension. So file path, and then the second is .py for some reason, if the extension matters for you. Import os, file name os.path.split text. So there's not two T's there, SPLITEXT, and then we go for the absolute path again. That is going to give us a tuple, the file path here, separated by where the extension is, so that shows us that we have a .py extension. There's the split function. So basically with the split function here, again, we're going for the absolute path. This will provide a tuple back to us. At index 0, this is going to be the file path to our file, to our script. And then at index 1 is going to be the actual name of the script itself. So if you want to get the file path and the script name, you can do that with the split function. And finally, down here we have an example of the getSize function in path. So basically, with the absolute path, we're going to get the size of this file and we're going to print it out. That is going to be in bytes. And so this script is 86 bytes. So that could be useful if you're going through and you're trying to find like image files or movie files and make sure basically what size those files are. Something like the getSize function might be useful. So there's a basic idea of the functions that you get with os.path. The big thing that you're probably going to be looking at is, again, changing that current working directory. That's just a very useful thing you can put at the beginning of your scripts so that you can simply have a folder, you can have your script in the folder, and then when that script fires off, it's looking for resources inside that folder, not off in some other working directory, that type of thing. That's probably what you're going to use this for the most, but then there are a lot of other functions there. I showed you some of those other functions just to show you basically how many options there are within Python. Again, one of the things I talked about way back in the beginning was the bias of Silicon Dojo, where I try to teach you things relatively quickly and show you how you can start building things quickly, but by doing that, we skip over, certain subjects, and this is one of those examples where there are more functions with os.path. There's just so much you can do. And so what I would tell you is go out, do a little Googling, do some research on ChatGPT, and if you're sitting there and you're thinking, you're like, I bet you should be able to do something with a file path in such and such a way. Just do a Google or do a ChatGPT query on it, and you'll probably find that os.path has a function for you that will allow you to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So this is one of those things that you just got to go and you got to play with, an incredibly valuable utility, even though it looks pretty simple.